Welcome to the April 23rd bhyve production user call. We have Andrew, Mark, Hans, Ed, Alexei, and myself, Michael, so far, and we've been talking about a few PRs and bugs, specifically this Windows emulation one, but Alexei is actually, that one's down the document here, but Alexei's got some news on EDK II. We've been looking at that. You were saying that latest EDK II does not support older Windows non-standard UEFI payloads.
Yeah, the older Windows uses non-standard UEFI files, so it doesn't want to boot on newer EDK II. Older EDK II supported them somehow. I don't
Okay.
know what they changed, why it doesn't boot anymore, but yeah.
And then what was that
And
about
the other
including a
bug
shell
was
or
the other
something?
bug for missing shell and IPXE. Yeah, it is because apparently the build file for bhyve, the .fdf and .dsc files for bhyve x64 are FDF. The FDF and DSC files for bhyve 64, those are the EDK2 make files, are referencing older places where the shell is. The shell has changed places in EDK2, so just doesn't compile it in.
Did you say in chat you're working on a new make file or a different strategy?
Yeah, I'm currently just like putting the main key reference
Pardon
file to
me.
this.
And you said so you're following the key QEMU
Yeah,
pattern to build it?
I'm merging in the QEMU file with this.
Okay, and that was in EDK 2's, so there's no licensing issue. Got
Yeah,
it.
the build file of EDK2. That's going to be like the OVMF PKG file with a bhyve. It, yeah,
That
I'm
said,
sleepy.
no worries. I recall Corvin working on OVMF some time ago. Does OVMF mean much to us in 2026? What does it help? What does it hurt?
OVMF is basically the EDK2. That is how it's called, and there are just different platforms for what it's compiled for. So OVMF for bhyve is what you run in bhyve. OVMF for QEMU is just called OVMF. In the builds there, it's the reference platform.
Okay, got it. So when we have a QEMU payload land in ports, it is technically DEDK2
Yeah, it is
and
the reference EDK2.
okay, D like D hyphen reference.
No, the he, the
Oh,
t,
yeah,
yeah.
drop in chat just because I hear what I hear and I've got background. Lol.
Um,
Oh,
the most common word in the English language.
the EDK2. Okay.
Yeah,
Fine. Cool. Anything else on that at this time, or are you just desiring sleep?
yeah. I'm just desiring sleep right now.
Sweet. Well, then, if you can stick around a few minutes, I will share some
Okay.
root on 9P news. One, I got it
Hmm.
working with bhyve load as Doug Rabson got it going. However, I asked him what it would look like to support UEFI. So here are his words kindly responding to me. I did not look at UEFI at the time. It would require adding virt.io and read-only 9P support to the bootloader. This seems like a lot of work compared to using bhyve load, which had what he needed. I doubt that 9P root is possible on QEMU. Thinking again about your original question, that would need 9P and virt.io to be supported in UEFI itself, so it can load and hand off to the bootloader, grub, etc. There's a warning here about the M size, and his response was, that is guest side FreeBSD kernel inside the VM. It's currently hard coded in the 9P driver, and there's plenty of room for tuning. So, for what it's worth, in spinning up jails with my little tool, I thought, screw it. How about I throw in a kernel and throw in a simple 9P root and just verify that this is all working, and it indeed booted. going from there, I thought I'd tinker with QEMU, and indeed it will, without much trouble, allow you to create an FSDev and a device, the exact same path, etc., pass it into the VM, boot the VM off a kernel from file system, but load the client-side driver, run the mount here, and boom, it gave a warning, but I got a mounted share. So it's niche, but it's working. And I think just in the long term, it will not be attractive to use bhyve load, which is very developer friendly, but according to some, a security risk insofar as you could load anything on the host as root and hope for the best. So that was my news there, and here's that information for those listening in on the instruction that's failing to emulate with Windows. Those are my news topics. I will keep, maybe by next time, have a sweep of testing on 15 on ARM64 with the latest 16 current to just see if I can get some more tangible updated panic messages, etc., out of ARM64 bhyve hosts. So, completely parallel to this, hopefully there's been some positive rumblings about getting Smart 8 in base. I guess Zai looked at that. Thank you, Chuck, for pursuing that. I don't know if Ed has an opinion on that. Anywho, so those were my topics. Does anyone else have a topic?
Well, I have something.
Yes, please.
So I've looked at the bug that we were talking about 5 minutes ago,
Yes.
and I'm writing a comment to the bug report right just now. This is not an issue with instruction emulation, even though that's what a bug is. This is just the TPM emulation not being able to handle the command that Windows sent it. And since that is a write to a register, it aborts the write by saying I can't emulate this. So that's basically so yeah, the last message is a bit misleading in that case. So TPM needs to be fixed, either to handle this more gracefully or well, it needs to be fixed to handle this more gracefully, either by ignoring it or by returning a proper error due to through the hardware registers, whichever way that would be. I'm not familiar enough with TPM to know that off the back of my head. But,
do we know if that's a critical TPM feature or a just housekeeping operation?
I
We
don't
can safely
really know.
ignore?
Apparently Windows thinks it can do that, and our TPM says no. And since that is deep down in instruction emulation, so basically when it's handling a move instruction to a device register, the physical hardware not supporting this will probably just ignore it and flag an error somewhere. But I'm not sure TPM can actually do that.
Well, that alone is helpful and insightful.
So,
Yeah, so if you
it's,
can take a peek, that would be great. You know more about the TPM subsystem than most of us. And we thank you for that. So other ideas, concerns, jokes, weekend plans. Okay, well, my promise is to get back on ARM64 bhyve news now that I can easily, and thank you for looking into that. Alexei, Godspeed on all things make files for EDK II. That's been a project that's not received the love it deserves over the years. And
By the way, I'm
Alexei,
going to
yeah,
build
please.
something. I've still not worked on it, but we could take a CSM file from a non-working BIOS, like a just a regular PC consumer BIOS and then
Yes.
embed it into EDK2 and try doing CSM like that.
Um, would that be host specific and you'd need a tool to retrieve on your given hardware, or do you think that would be a universal one?
You could download like a BIOS update file from some specific motherboard, then just unpack it in a makefile and then build that CSM file into EZK2. The only thing I'm questioning is the licensing for that because
Naturally.
yeah,
What
usually the BIOS update files they're under EULA.
here's a naive question. Are hardware boards ever using just truly EDK II off the shelf, or are they using third parties like AMI and friends and
The only
payloads?
truly EZK2 boards I know are some Chromebooks, but they do not have CSM.
Got it. And as I stare at like a B-Link. Oh, and the minis
Yeah.
form very much looks like it sure looks like EDK II, thank you very much, but I'll investigate that. Well, that's good to know. And don't get me wrong, if it was a user operated extraction tool, maybe that is, permissible. Phew. So there's that. And Alexei, any new thoughts on having a legacy bhyve firmware to support the older goodies?
Yeah,
And when is
I already have a patch for the legacy bhyve firmware, but I'm thinking I should actually downgrade it even more to not just the latest version that supports Windows, but
Mhm.
to uh like the oldest, not the oldest, like the latest pre-update EZK2.
So actually about that, is the one supporting Windows 2008 one and the same as having CSM included, or is that yet older?
No,
No, so we potentially have three of them. Yeah.
yeah.
And do they even build in 2026 with a retrievable tool chain? Because I know that's been quite the adventure.
The CSM one does not. The Windows 2008, Windows 2008 does build,
Okay,
and what the new ones, yeah, they do build.
got it. Wow. For what it's worth, did you have a chance to look at that build from a NetBSD developer for the Orange Pi? Just
No.
I couldn't get it to build. I didn't know how to do alt retrievals of stuff, but hey, that's just me. I'm no guru.
I have no like proper ARM hardware. I only have a Raspberry Pi that I can remote into,
I
but I
see.
don't
No
have it like
worries.
physically.
Okay, well, I can grant you Ampere access, etc. if you need. Anywho, other topics, questions, ideas. Last minute wish list items for 15.1, which is closing in pretty soon. Hans, broadly, any update on your work with, say, CPU ID?
Oh, yes.
Coming along?
So I had an implementation for x86 architecture levels,
Okay.
which was working fine. And then I was thinking about how I could use this to implement CPU types similar to what Kimu does.
Hmm.
And I figured I have added this really nice CPU ID configuration language, which allows you to turn on and off bits the way you want it. That in turn makes it possible for us to deliver the x86 architecture levels as well as particular CPU models as configuration file snippets that can be
Nice.
included in your bhyve configuration and do the right thing. So I'm currently working on exactly this. I got it working, but what it does not yet do is correctly verify whether you're actually allowed to turn the bits on that you're turning on. So there's some CPU ID bits that are safe to turn on if they are off in the CPU. There are a lot of them that you really don't want to turn on if the hardware doesn't support it. Like you turn on a bit that stands for a particular instruction set, software will want to use it, and then you will have emulation failures again because you get an undefined opcode. Like if you do an AVX 512 instruction on a system that doesn't have it. So that needs to be checked at the time it's configured. And that's a bit well, I wouldn't say it's tricky, it's just a lot of work to get this right and go through all the CPU ID information that's defined in principle and figure out which one is safe to enable if it's not in the hardware, which one is not, which shouldn't be changed at all. I think it's probably a bad idea to change the vendor identification, because this will definitely screw up stuff if you have an Intel CPU and claim it's from AMD or the
Oh,
other way around.
interesting. Right,
As
interesting. Go ahead, Andrew.
as far as these kind of bit things for features goes, would it make sense to take what the real CPU provides and then just do a simple AND with the bit mask that the user provides? That way,
Yeah,
anything
that's,
that, well, no,
that's
that's not
definitely
quite right. But you get the
that's
idea
not
of what I'm
quite
getting
right,
at.
but it's a step in the right direction. So there are definitely features which can be turned on in CPU ID, even if the hardware is turned off. It doesn't have it. I guess there won't be that many where this is actually useful, but it would be nice to handle that properly. So I'm basically building a list of CPU ID registers and defining what bits shouldn't be changed at all and which bits can be disabled or can only be disabled, and all the rest can be enabled at will. And
I mean, yeah, what I'm getting at is if the CPU doesn't support it, then we don't support it, even if the user says to do
you
it.
can support the processor serial number if you want to. That was one of my standard examples for this feature, because that has been turned off by hardware since, well, the Pentium 3 was the only one supporting it, but the CPU ID bit is still there, and if it's on, software will go and read the serial number just fine from the CPU ID data. So that's definitely something that falls into the category, even though it's not particularly useful, I guess.
Okay.
Would there
I was just,
ever, go ahead, Andrew?
I was just, I'm just trying to think of, is there a way to do it without having to manually create profiles for sanity?
And conversely, would there ever be a developer use case where you do want an implausible configuration to see how elegantly your software handles, say, a missing instruction?
Yeah, definitely. That's could be useful for development.
Because I don't want to completely have a seatbelt to prevent everything and give two CPUs, have a nice day, that's all bhyve does. That would maybe be a step in the wrong direction if we have all the infrastructure to be very creative. So just thinking out loud here.
Well, I'm not really implying that. What I'm implying is just that anything that the CPU can do, you can mask off, but you can't turn on something that we can't handle anyway.
Well, I'm not entirely sure that always holds true.
Fair.
Even though for some mitigations, for some hardware issues or so, I just want to make that assumption. So right now, I'm just building a list of things where I know it shouldn't be done, and this is something that I'm doing once, and then it's there, and maybe extended in the future if things change like that. It's not something that has to be done over and over again.
Cool. Oh, that's great. So that's the infrastructure, and may, as I keep saying on calls, may 1,000 flowers bloom. Well, great work, Hans. How soon do you think you'll have something for people to test? How can we help? Rephrased.
Did we lose you?
He's probably looking at his calendar and its stack of commits and that.
Oh,
No worries. Or got distracted by factors. Anyhow, I trust you will let us know when we can all help in some way. So, anything else at this time? Andrew, you are unmuted. Would you like the honors?
be sure to like and subscribe.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.